With the Greeks, there was one tragic hero, and that one person had a tragic flaw, something that made that tragic person fall from the height and that they were at. And there was only one person affected by that tragic flaw. Shakespeare takes a tragic flaw and he smears it around the entire cast. So everyone in that play is affected by that tragic flaw. So the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet is impetuous behavior.
Elizabethan literature is considered to be one of the most splendid ages of English literature. This is due to the great flourishing of poetry and drama. Some of the leading figures in literature in the late 1500s and early 1600s were, of course, Thomas Kyd, Robert Greene, and John Donne, along with a cornucopia of other writers, playwrights, and poets.
Shakespeare is not meant to be read. Shakespeare is meant to be performed and listened to and watched, where the language starts to come alive with the performers and to the audience. And there's a lot in the play that ninth grade teachers gloss over because it may be deemed inappropriate.
The English playwrights were intrigued by the Italian model, showing blood and violence on the stage. This had a major influence on many of the English playwrights' works. Arguably the best playwright of all time, William Shakespeare, lived and worked during this time period. Shakespeare was very gifted and incredibly versatile. He surpassed professionals such as Robert Greene, who mocked him. Though most of his dramas achieved great success, it is in his later years that he wrote what have been considered his greatest plays: Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, Othello, and King Lear. Shakespeare also popularized the English sonnet. The sonnet was first introduced into English by Thomas Wyatt in the early 1600s. Poems were originally intended to be set to music as if they were lyrics, like those by Thomas Campion, but they became popular as printed literature. Customs and traditions played an important role in the life of people in the Elizabethan era. People were expected to attend church every Sunday in order to remain aware of the customs and festivals according to the church calendar. Each month was a specific church festival. For example, February had Valentine's Day, March had Easter, and April had All Fools' Day. Additionally, Elizabethan culture was a patriarchy, with the exception of the monarch, who was considered godly or holy. The men of the household had the most privileges and were in charge of all financial decisions for their families. For recreation, upper-class citizens would attend balls, dinners, and even travel. Middle-class citizens would partake in viewings of plays, less elegant balls, and even reading, since books were widely available at the time. The living conditions of this era were mainly crowded townhouses in the cities, but if a citizen had enough money, they could buy mansions or, in some cases, castles. As the start of a political reformation, Queen Elizabeth I declared that Protestants was the new official religion and that any followers of the old religion, Catholicism, would be penalized and declared heretics. This sparked major outrage and led to a time of spies and unrest in England. The popular belief was based on a chain of creation or a sequence to God's creation. First, they believed came God, then angels, demons, man, woman, animals, plants, and lastly, minerals. It was often thought that organisms lower on the chain did not have ability to reason or be taught, therefore making them lesser. In addition to unrest caused by religion, the population believed in dark magic, witches, changelings, and sprites. Witches were thought to control diseases and plagues, so they were intensely hated. Any woman who did not conform to society was considered a witch and was burned at stake. This dark society was one of the major influences in William Shakespeare's works. Romeo and Juliet is a complicated story, and many different themes are interpreted by readers.
It's a tragedy. Everyone in the play keeps saying, maybe we should think about this. Maybe we should slow down. Juliet says, maybe this is too rash, too sudden. The friar says, maybe we should relax a little bit or slow down a little bit. Everyone takes a moment and says, maybe this is going too fast. Nah, let's go ahead.
Yeah.
And that's where the tragedy happens. That's where the mistakes happen.
Originally, Juliet wanted to take their relationship slow, but then she suddenly tells Romeo that if he truly loves her, she will marry him. However, as the play progresses, it is seen that Romeo and Juliet are both willing to take their own lives to be with one another in heaven.
None of that. Everything Romeo says about Juliet is physical. Basically, he walks around saying, wow, she's hot. She's beautiful. She's like the moon or the stars, and she's, wow, I really love her because of the way she looks. But they don't know each other. In 4.5 days, they meet each other, they marry, they go to bed, and they're dead. But I know that's not a love story that I want my daughter to follow. You know, that's not a love story. If that was any other story, that would be silly behavior, wrong behavior, or something as a warning. The play's a warning about impetuous behavior. Don't jump into things too fast. Tybalt, you'll end up dead. Mercutio, you'll end up dead. Romeo, you'll end up dead. Juliet, you'll end up dead. Don't, take a deep breath. Relax. Take your time. And I think that's the meaning of the play.
Through Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare demonstrates how quickly love can tear people apart and affect the rational decision-making process. Many characters have different personalities in the play Romeo and Juliet. Romeo is possibly the most important character.
I think most people see Romeo they see him as a lover. And I think he's just a horny 17-year-old.
Oh, would thou leave me so unsatisfied?
What satisfaction canst thou have tonight?
That wants to be in love and wants to get some action. The first two scenes of the play, he's talking about another woman he loves and how so much he's in love with this woman, and his dad's talking about Romeo locking himself in his room and writing bed poetry.
He's very passionate and is controlled by his emotions. His development over the course of the play was to love more deeply than at the beginning, where his love was shallow. Although he is shown to be knowledgeable through his use of language and comprehension, he lacks ability to control himself and takes things such as love in an excess and will plow headstrong into a mess. Juliet is well educated and beautiful.
And I think Juliet also has a romantic version of love in her head, a romantic vision of what love should be. And has nothing to do with Romeo and has nothing to do with a real person. It has to do with his vision. He jumps up into his balcony trying to get a kiss or perhaps something more. And she says, what kind of satisfaction do you want tonight? And he says, well, can I at least get a kiss? And she says, you know, marry me tomorrow and you can have anything you want. And that's not love, that's impetuousness. And Mercutio is also impetuous. A little bit of a hothead and braggart and got some swagger to him, and he gets into a fight and makes some bad choices.
Even though Mercutio is one of Romeo's best friends, they do not share all the same points of view. Mercutio is rude to people that he doesn't know, and he does not care about most people. This is apparent also when he speaks with the nurse.
Two, a shirt and a smock!
Referring to her as a sailboat because she is very large. In addition, Mercutio is quick to fight and loves to hear himself talk, regardless of whoever's feelings he hurts.
Impetuousness. Romeo has it, Juliet has it, Mercutio has it, Tybalt has it, the father has it, his interaction with Juliet, the friar has it, thinking, oh, I'll just marry them. You know, nobody sits back and thinks, what are the ramifications of this? And that's exciting to see everyone kind of going through the same thing.